Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of MTG Arena. Today is Wednesday, November 27th, the day before Thanksgiving, so clearly it's going to be a laid-back week for me in particular, between spending money that I really don't have on Black Friday sales and just looking for sales and mostly also mostly sales, yeah. Also, I have a backup that is going and doesn't really have a way of being paused, so like bandwidth for the past couple streams has been kind of limited. We are under 1 terabyte on that backup, so it should be done probably by at least Monday, if not by Friday. But then, of course, Friday will be Black Friday also, so there's some issues there about how much time I will spend on playing Magic. So we do have one new thing in the store, and here we have a Wednesday Brawl that's not even being mentioned here. I guess I could play the Wednesday Brawl, and I guess we could look at it, but they've straight up kind of just like decided not to even bother to promote it. Like, it's hidden. It's not even on the all gameplay play modes. There's this dragon thing, and that is the new thing in the store. Well, I don't know if that is my network or if that is their network. So 2,000 gold and you get this dragon whelp, or 3,000 gems. That's quite a lot when you think about how 3,400 would get you historic collection of 20 supposedly really good cards. Or 20,000 gold would get you 20,000 gold would get you like 20 packs at the minimum of the next expansion. And since this only gives you 10 booster packs, which might be different than buying just these. Are these booster packs? I think they are, but I'm not sure. I guess they are. So 10 of these is $10. So if this is almost worth, if this is worth 20 packs, they're basically asking you $20 for this guy, and you're only going to really have one pet. Let's be honest here. We've already gotten the Throne of Eldraine pet, which is the fox, and frankly it's not my first pick for a pet if I really even care about a pet. And this clearly is the only pet that's been available or released at the moment. I think there was a beta pet that you had to buy something for. So yeah, that kind of sucks. We can play anything we want, which is probably a good reason to not just play the black deck. Let's start to think. Do I really have time for a deck rebuild? Probably not. The base starter concept is still probably dead. So let's look at Dome of Destruction and just see what we have that we could change. Since Dome of Destruction would be a red deck primarily before anything else, and red decks primarily are going to be around the concept of dealing damage. We need to figure out where we are as far as cards that could cast spells that would do direct damage. First strike haste: when a fervent champion attacks another target attacking knight you can control gets +1/+1. That sounds interesting, so let's put that in there. First strike and then amass Probably not. Target creature gets +3/+2 until the end of the turn. That sounds interesting. 3 damage to target creature or destroys target artifact. That's clearly a better card. This one does an extra damage when it's attacking. Here, I think you aren't really gonna beat Shock as a card. So this is a pretty aggro deck. I don't see how there's a way that you wouldn't really make this as an aggro deck. So if we have Chandra Planeswalker, we could use this ability, but that's only if we have Chandra's Planeswalker. Equipping something and then giving haste and +1 is probably too technical for me at the moment. Trample, this is a cool card, although it's confusing. Basically, you can cast a spell out of your graveyard, and then exile it, so it doubles the amount of spells that you can, number of times you could cast a spell. The thing there, of course, would be how do you get something out of exile, or prevent something from going in exile, so that you could get more benefit from using that 2-card combination. So 3 damage to target creatures and scries 1. That's probably better than what we've got. Dealing 4 damage and exiling might be better than doing 3 damage and scrying. So there might be a choice that needs to be made there. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, do 2 damage to it. I don't think I like that. We clearly have better cards now. That's not a bad card to have. I just assume the fancy skins mean something, although frankly it may mean nothing. It may just be the random draw of what fancy skins I've gotten. And a fancy skin like this really does go back and just point out that some of these skins of the old Magic cards are just so old and ugly by comparison. How many of these could we have? Yeah, apparently we have an infinite number of these, so we have 7 of those, at least in our inventory. Although, is that true? It says 1, 2, 3, 4. And I guess if you have 4, according to Magic Arena, that's the equivalent of having 7. Which, I guess, fair enough. Of course, that's a break from reality. But I would like to see Magic Arena break from reality quite a bit. Deals 2 damage to any target. That's not a bad card. Let's see. 1 damage to each opponent. The question we're looking for though is, do we have a second strategy that would synergize somewhat with just doing a full aggro game? So if we played this, you would get 1 the first time, then 2 the second time, and then I guess at the depending on whether the other guys survived or not. Yeah, I don't think Goblin Gathering really makes sense unless you're figuring out a way to get 3 of those in the graveyard without having to play them, or unless you're playing some full strategy around goblins, which looks like might be a concept. I feel like I'm pretty much at a point where I have as many cards as I'm likely to get for Throne of Eldraine. I think the rest are just rares or epics, or whatever they're called. Let's see, what's the real one? Rares and mythic rares. And because of that, I think I potentially would just constantly have this situation where I'd have to open hundreds and hundreds of packs to hope to get cards, and that I may never get. And that's again a point where Magic Arena is too much like real world Magic, and there needs to be a better system. And they're trying to meet you somewhat halfway there, but not really. If in the real world you were guaranteed that you could craft and own 3 mythic rare cards, well then 3 people, I would have like 3 Black Lotuses cards and selling them. Whenever 1 or more loyalty counters are removed from Chandra's fire arsenal, she deals that much damage. What is a loyalty counter though? See, I have this, and I should play this just for experimental senses. And somebody decided to mow the lawn in the background. Alright. It's really a weird day to mow the lawn. You're mostly going to be mowing leaves, but that might be the plan. Let's see. I'm gonna sound like a crazy person if nobody actually hears the lawnmower going on in the background. Yeah. The problem we're already running into, though, I will say, is even only focused on Throne of Eldraine cards, I already have too many cards, and not enough of them that I know what they do. That we've hit that tipping point where I'm halfway through this and I don't really want to read any more descriptions on cards, and instead we have all these cards are kind of the same in the fact that they're actually useful. Like, we don't really have any garbage cards. Like, Hearthstone had a lot of garbage cards, and a lot of cards that just had an attack and a defense, and maybe their attack and defense was a little bit higher because they didn't have any effect. Magic, pretty much every character has a effect of some sort. And let's see. This seems like this might be a cool card, but not for this deck. And see, if I was going to do a commander deck, there's a weird situation with that also, where I need like a list. I need the game to actually force me to play certain commander cards. Alright. Yeah, that would be a lot more helpful if it did something along that line. Yeah, that's not a bad card to have. And I could play that in a mono red. I'm still, yeah. At most, I'm a month into playing Magic, or back to playing Magic, and I still am in this poor position where I just don't know which cards are good or not. And by the time I figure out what all the Throne of Eldraine cards are that are good, the next expansion may be on its way. It might very well turn out that it's just too difficult in general to stay up with Magic the Gathering, because they constantly are putting out cards until maybe they start having some overlapping abilities. Alright, so let's get rid of this. I think we're going with a pure red deck, but we really don't have anything that is happy for the fact that we're going with a pure red deck. I didn't see a card in there that said, yes, this is the right move. And there are some things that need to be added in the uncolored category. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 24. We should be probably at 26. So that's 12 more cards that we need to consider getting rid of. Meanwhile, I want to look at these cards. I wish I had a Leyline card, but I don't think I do. Sacrifice gives you a uncolored mana. You can sacrifice this to draw a card. But you have to have 5 more things. You may cast spells this turn as though they had flash, which I don't know what that is different than instant. Like, I don't even know the difference between the two. I wish there was a dictionary or something, like some help that would explain that doesn't just involve going to the websites. Yeah, there's a lot of room for integrating some health. To be able to bring up this and then put your mouse over certain key phrases and then that hover over them and then explain what that means. And then after a sentence of explaining it, if it still feels like it's not been explained fully, there should be just a hyperlink more where you click and you get more information. And see more examples. Because, yeah, when you are writing help for things, honestly, 2 or 3 different levels of help often are useful. Sometimes I just need a quick reminder to say, Flash is like instant, but it can only be played on your turn, if that's what Flash really is. Or I might want to click more and see several well described examples of how you play Flash cards. And I might want to even go even crazier and have like a list of all Flash cards or some Flash cards. Iron Bully for 3 mana. Probably not worth it. Spell to return it to your hand if sacrificed. It's probably not a bad card. Any color mana. I feel like the spinning wheel's pretty good, although not as good in the red deck as it would be in my black deck. Alright. So we're at 77 of 60. So now I want to look just at lands, I guess. Lands, red. Do I have something? We are doing a deck rebuild. I said I didn't want to do that, and then I ended up doing it anyways. Creatures you control get +1/+1 till the end of the turn. This isn't too bad, actually. Buffing up your characters, and it still goes on the field as a regular land if you are just if you have just one regular mountain. Then gaining life may just not be a focus for red cards. Like, sure, okay. So it might be worth it to get rid of the Bloodfell Caves, but we'll see. 6 damage to any target. Can we have more of this? Yes, we can. 5 damage to target creature, and 3 damage to the owner. We can have a bunch of those. Can we have more than one of these? We don't know. Can we have more than one of these? No. Put this back from the graveyard. Put a spell back from the graveyard. I think we probably only do need 1 spinning wheel. And yeah, maybe drawing cards is better than this. Yeah. I think in this case we don't really need the spinning wheel. Target creature and gets double strike until the end of the turn. I don't think that would happen very often. Yeah. I don't think double strike is as useful as it might seem. This only cost 1 to do 3 damage to any target. So do we have another one of those? No. +1 till the end of the turn. +1 until the end of the turn. See, and if I had like Bone Crusher, that would be... It'd be nice to give him double strike, but I don't think I want to do that. Let's go ahead and get rid of these. And let's go ahead and get rid of these because Rimrock Knight's not useful. And then Lava Coil costs 2 mana to do 4 damage to a creature, where this costs 2 mana to do 3 damage and then 1 scry. So we need to probably make a decision there. Let's get rid of those, I guess. This is spells for the Fire Urchin. Buff it up. That's one we want. This one destroys the target artifact, so I like that one. And so we can get rid of that. We're still 6 short. So we have 6 lands here, but that would be crazy. So I'm gonna get rid of these 4, And then these two. And let's see how this works. A lot of setup, a lot of deck builds. We're gonna have a lot of that just happen. Apologies if you don't like the deck rebuilding. It's just gonna be a thing with Magic, I think. Probably for the entire year, at minimum, that we play Magic. It's just gonna take me that long to really learn it. There was a lot of times where I was, before I was streaming, I was playing Hearthstone, and I just was a lot more educated on the cards and what they did. Hopefully people actually do like the deck rebuilds and looking at the cards a little bit more than they even like the playing. This is a very aggro deck. Of course, with all the network issues, all kinds of problems could be happening in the background, and we've been running into problems connecting to a game on Magic for the past week or two, and I think some of that, at the very least, does fall on Magic's side and isn't just my side. So let me see if I can find the thing I want to talk about first. Just see if I can find this tab and if that we could talk about that. Generally, I don't try to talk about certain content out of order because it's just too difficult to go through the tabs and sort things that way, and yeah, that is pretty much proving itself to be the case this time too. So if we click cancel and it's not working, then that tells me we've got to exit out and relaunch and try again. Once this full backup happens, I really shouldn't ever have to have a backup that goes this long. It should always be an incremental backup of some sort, although even if it does do a full backup, there are some settings that seem like they can only be set when you start running a backup, and that would limit the amount of bandwidth that it's using, if that is what's a contributing factor, which it might be. Well, the Steam Store August sale is happening right now. I heard about it yesterday. I was busy yesterday doing non-YouTube stuff, and so by the time I had heard it, it had already kind of happened, and because of that, I didn't see a reason to try and make a special event of streaming and looking at the games. On top of that, I would argue that here's that card that will buff up creatures, but right now we are waiting a while until we actually have any creatures. We are pretty limited on the number of creatures. So let's do this and choose red, and then do this and attack that, That gives us a 5/4. And that is a permanent upgrade for this guy. So he is our main guy in this strategy. Now this will only do 3 damage to flying creatures or destroy an artifact. I did not realize that was what was going on with that one. So that kind of sucks. 5 damage to target creature. I could do 8 damage right now. Or I can play this. We can put that on the field. And we could do 4 damage to a target creature. And exile it and get rid of the Death Touch character. Sure. That's a little bit of overkill, but it's... we're playing aggro. This alone will do, will do 3 more damage. So we only have to do 5 damage on top of that. So the August Steam Summer Sale isn't much. Some creators have put out what they've got on sale. For instance, the Shadow Warrior collection here is $8.99. I just wanted to mention that. Since it was a tab that was opened, and then we'll just go to the straight store. Alright, let's see. 5 damage. Can I do anything that would do 1 more damage? So that's what I really would like to see. Alright. Just no attacks. That's all I can do, unfortunately. So here's what the autumn sale looks like on the Steam store. It's basically nothing. There's like a Gabe Newell running a shop in kind of a like cyber, I guess you might call this like a cyber Tokyo type world, but not a dystopian type world. I don't even know what really the theme is, and I'm only thinking that it's a Tokyo Japanese type world from the trees. And then they're just highlighting games. Like, that's all they're really doing. And it kind of, in a weird way, along with the Steam Awards push, highlights how there really hasn't been a great number of images here not loading because of my bandwidth. Just there hadn't really been a ton of good games that came out in 2019, and I want to talk about the Steam Awards in particular to point that out. So I could cast this once and then but to do that I would have to, I think what I'm gonna have to do is just, yeah, let's just do this. Just let him kill this guy. He can block, this one will attack, and I'm not playing aggro anymore. Clearly. The one failure you can do when playing aggro is don't be aggressive enough. If you slow it down even a little bit, you give them time to draw cards, you get them time to play whatever combination of things they're trying to do. Like, particularly being a blue deck, this might be a combo deck where it's 2 or 3 cards that are needed to really succeed. Well, red, and how is this? Alright, let's just attack with everything. And then... Do we have an artifact? No, so... Okay. Alright. So do this. Do this. Do this. Do this. Doesn't matter really what he does. I've got flying. Flying was gonna win regardless. So unless he was playing some strategy. And he played a lot of cards, so clearly that was a combo, and I gave them enough time to play into their combo somewhat, and it didn't help them, but it was bad gameplay on my part. We're at rank 71, so unless Wizards of the Coast and Magic just throw a monkey wrench in the works and tell me that the Eldraine Mastery thing expires in a week, I think we're gonna get up to level 100. I mean, if they said that it ends in 5 days at the end of the month, that would be crazy. But who knows? By the way, Magic has been very off and on about this, but one of the new expansions that they're selling in Paper Magic has like 5 different special background sleeves, which I don't know in Paper Magic if the sleeves that Wizards of the Coast sells are actual sleeves that you put over your actual cards that all have the same back. I guess that is the case, because I had heard that all Magic cards still have the exact same card back always. So yeah, they're selling something that I think includes sleeves. At the very least, it's 5 different boxes. I think it's 5, it might be 6. I don't have any proper information here, clearly. But with each of those different boxes, there's a specific artwork associated with it, and you get a code inside of that that will give you a sleeve for that, for a card style, a sleeve for Magic Arena. It seems like every Wizards of the Coast product should include something for Magic Arena. Perhaps it'll take them a really long time to get booster packs that give you some kind of code for, say, 100 dust or 100 gold or something like that, but everything should include something. Even if it is just at the beginning, here is a welcome aboard, play Magic Arena Online, get 10 free packs of the most recent expansion. Like anything like that. But they need to push a lot of Paper Magic players to play Arena and get away from playing Magic Online, and they need to have a well balanced audience so that we can have better matchmaking of people playing Magic Arena, and some of the lifestyle 30 or 40-year-olds who have been playing Magic their entire life will perhaps improve the and assist the new players. Of course, it is an extremely difficult job to have the good guys who are playing Magic come and play Magic Arena and not also bring in the bad guys, the jerks, the cheaters, the people who are going to ruin the gameplay experience for new players. And they also, it's not so much a deal with Magic Arena, but Magic in general needs to address reprints in a realistic way. They need to screw over the game shops which honestly I imagine it is a significant number of people that are game shop owners that also own a significant amount of the highly expensive older cards. They need to just screw them over and put out reprints. And I don't particularly care if there's a reprint symbol that they put. Wow, this is just great. This should work pretty well. Like, I don't care if there's a reprint symbol and that's some way to prove that the originals are still kind of worth it. But they need to pull all the value out of older cards that is acquired, because people simply cannot play with the old cards because they can't purchase them. They're too expensive. It's too insane. I was hearing about cards that are $800 each, and it's like, yeah, a realistic person is not going to spend $800 on a single cardboard card.
What rightfully belongs to it.
And frankly, if anybody is spending $800 on a single cardboard card, they deserve.
My, how you've grown.
They have acted so unethically opulent, for lack of a better term, that they kind of deserve to get screwed over. In the same way that when you have a bunch of CEOs that are doing inside trading and hugely unethical things in general, if they lose a few bucks here and there because somebody scammed them, it's not something anybody really cares about. And we saw that, I believe, in 2009, I believe it was, when there was just a huge amount of very rich people who lost their investments, and no normal person realistically shed a tear for them. Because, yeah, at a certain point, if you're acting so just silly, for lack of a better term, it's just silly. Yeah. So, yeah, personally, I'd love to see Magic come out and go, no, we're going to reprint all of our cards. All those expensive cards, we're going to reduce the price. They could adjust it, and this really is a person who's just new to being back in Magic, but they could adjust it to the point where they're going to say that we're going to reprint all cards once they go over $100. We're going to try to cap the market value on any card at $100 and just screw out a small generation of Magic players now. I mean, you would be talking probably less than 5,000 people in total that would get screwed out of that, collectors, and you would get almost certainly more than 5,000 people new to the game, to the field, or at least I think you might, just by making the game a lot more friendly.
You were lucky to get that close.
Let's see. This just puts lands on the field, so clearly they want a bunch of land.
Stomping time.
It's always an answer.
He's going for a deck destruction spell. But let's move on from my rambling. Here, the Steam Awards, where you nominate things, they were very picky this year about actually kind of forcing you to pick games that came out this year, at least in the VR category. So the only game I could even find searching through VR games that came out in 2019 was Beat Saber. So I selected Beat Saber. For Game of the Year, I went with Atelier Rising. Just kind of no real reason. I did Time Clickers again because you have to write a review of a game and play a game that you picked to get the badge. So the only game I even selected in the entirety of my selection was Time Clickers. Like all the other games I've picked, in part because I really haven't played too many games and I'm not likely to play too many more games, and that certainly is going to affect how much money I spend on this sale. I'm thinking $33 is what I have in my shopping cart right now, and I'm thinking I will whittle it down even less than that. There's some Uno and Cluedo and some other things that are kind of cheap. So I'm thinking I'll grab those, but otherwise I am pretty much not getting anything. Remember, I did buy a video card for $500, and so in theory I want to recover that cost over these two sales, and then the big sale will be December, hopefully, where there's actually trading cards. Like, there's no trading cards or anything with this sale. So I picked the Better with Friends award. I gave it to River City Girls, which I suspect is Better with Friends. There's a lot of games that you could have picked. Like Borderlands 3 would be a game that you might put in this category, except for they all have these controversies around them, and Borderlands and Gearbox have yet another controversy around them, in the sense that they are... I need more of these actually, because it triggers this. Battleborn is getting shut down completely. Battleborn, I think everybody pretty much knew, has been a complete failure. But for them to come out and admit it is the final step, I suppose. So for the most innovative gameplay, I took PC Building Simulator. It is kind of innovative gameplay, but that's kind of it. I believe Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is on a decent sale, and that was one of the things I was going to get. Most outstanding story-rich game, I went with Ni no Kuni Remastered. I don't even know if the story is really that rich in that game. I'm just kind of picking things. Best game you suck at, I took Catherine Classic. I think Catherine Classic probably is a good game. And Outstanding Visual Style Award, I took Code Vein. And if any of these images were loading, you would pretty much tell that with the exception of PC Building Simulator and Time Clickers and Beat Saber, I picked all basically Japanese games. Like, that's where it all broke down. Might literally have too much mana. Too much land. Right, next. All attack here. Next. And we'll see if anything decides to defend. Okay.
Was that supposed to hurt?
I screwed that up. Had I done the other one, I would have actually killed something. So yeah, that's the Steam Awards, and that's pretty much all there really is to say. I could go into my wish list and say, yeah, there's a lot of games that are under $10. There's a lot of games that are under $2 even. Even a few that are under 99 cents. And if anybody wanted to support me and friend me and gift me games, right now would be the perfect time to do that. Or gift me a gift card so that I could be a little bit more flippant on spending money. But as it is right now, the current situation is I'm just a little too broke to want to buy extra games, and I have plenty of games in general. There's nothing that I'm incredibly itching to play that is so well discounted that I want to buy it. There are some things certainly that could be mentioned. A Hat in a Time, Snake Pass. You could certainly go to my wish list and just order by rank, and that's what I did. Is I did a relatively lengthy scroll through rank and pick games that are just kind of high priority, and then I scrolled through discount percentage, and there's a lot of things that are discounted, 90%, and then I went by price in general and did another third search and just said, alright, are these cheap? And that got my shopping list up to about $100. And then I said, well, how many of these are just cheap? There was a slight thought that I needed to buy all the Sherlock Holmes games because Focus Home Interactive was delisting all the Sherlock Holmes games. But on further research, that has already happened and been resolved. And Frogwares now has all of those games, it seems, already published on Steam themselves, and I don't believe any of their games are missing. So yeah, I think we're fine. So I was fine to kind of ignore those. Yeah. So here's an example of where aggro does not work. Aggro does not work when somebody outplays you. When they have cards on the field, when you have not just been able to do massive amounts of damage. I keep trying to kill this one guy, and I keep failing miserably because he just has so many on the field. And so you need a secondary concept, something to say, alright, he's outplayed me, I've got to slow this down, I've got to figure out a way to build up my reserves and actually succeed. I think we could probably lose
This will come in handy.
Like, because he's doing this deck destruction deck, he got rid of a bunch of my cards. And it's going to take him 2 turns to win. Yeah. A decent amount of news has happened, which is funny because there really was just nothing Monday. So Gamma Sutra has an article here. Toadman Interactive has acquired, the publisher sold out. I don't recognize either one of these companies though. Let's see. Yeah, none of these names sound familiar at all. So it's pretty inside baseball, I guess, information. Like, there's no mention here of what games Toadman has ever made. They say they're UK based game publishing. But I have no clue. Let's see. Will this actually load? Jeez, all of these potentially are just not going to load at all. Just resolve. Just win. I've got to learn to concede faster. It's not worth the time. It's not worth the time to let the other player play their strategy. And frankly, most of the daily quests don't revolve around playing strategies anyways to any real level, so they are much more focused on wins. So I'm probably would be helping my opponent more often than not by conceding. We have a game here on Steam called Ruthless Conquest. We will be talking later that Valve has kicked off 1,000 games off of their storefront right as the sale is happening, which is pretty good. This looks like it's a garbage game. So I had some thoughts that we might be seeing the beginning of some kind of curation on Steam's storefront. It is going to definitely be one step forward, 2 steps back, and it's all going to be very nebulous and inconsistent. And until we get kind of a list of what the 1,000 games were that have been kicked off the storefront, these could be all like Russian troll garbage games that nobody was buying anyways, or it could be 1,000 visual novels that were selling like great, or it could be about 1,000 lewd games that they kicked off because they're wearing school uniforms. I mean, it could be anything or a little bit of everything, probably a little bit of everything. The way Valve was doing it before, they were trying to identify the exact people that they were dealing with, and that way they could find somebody. What often happens is somebody is representing themselves as hundreds if not thousands of different publishers and different developers, and they're listing their games on Steam Direct, and then they need to do the research to really say, oh, actually this is just one organization, this is one group of people that are making all of these, let's just kick off all of these games. They were trying to cast a very wide net and kind of do like an underground sting action. I don't think they're particularly that effective at that, and they are sacrificing time clearly to filter their storefront that way, when they would be better off simply acting faster and quicker. For as bad as it is that YouTube and Twitch and Twitter and almost every other service on the internet just very instantly will ban somebody or mute them or give them some kind of strike, it works in the speed of doing business, in the way that that's the speed of doing business these days. It seems to me that basically nobody on Steam's storefront gets even temporary bans while the situation is being investigated. It seems like the games are allowed to be posted, allowed to be seen by the end user, by the customers, allowed to be sold. It would be actually very interesting if there was some kind of warning that popped up that said this game is under investigation, and as such it's currently not available for sale. Even if they were asking for like feedback, that would be helpful, but that would just be another system that people could gamify. That's why I think Steam does kind of need a quality council, some group of people willing to be vetted and look at games that aren't shown to the average Steam consumer. And that would be something I would be willing to be a part of, frankly, too. It's just, let me look at these new games, let me look at them and tell you, here's what I think about them, and then you can develop a level of trust in my opinion and decide whether my information is useful or not. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Call of Duty Mobile gets a zombie mode, which frankly every year and every Call of Duty game I see a title where Call of Duty something gets a zombie mode or gets more zombies, it seems like half of the selling point these days of Call of Duty is the zombies. So why don't they just make a zombie game at that point and stop beating around the bush? I wanted to edit my deck actually. Yeah, so much of this is going to be around Spells Gorger Weird that I do need to have more, not less of these kinds of multicolored spells. And then I want to play this and figure out how this works. And then that will teach me something important, I think. TechRaptor has an article here. Stadia Pro users are getting 2 more free with Pro games. So Farming Simulator 19 and the Tomb Raider Definitive Edition. That's the first game of the reboot series. But those games were already, I believe, available for sale. So some people may have bought that already. Speaking of the Steam sale, so I'm going back to that. They are apparently clearing out their HTC Vive content hardware, and because of that, they are selling like a controller for $2. But then the Valve controller is not particularly something I'd want. For much more than $2, I'd take it for $2. Unfortunately, the shipping is $7.99, so you're still paying $10 for this, and that's not worth the effort. The only reason I'd even want Valve's controllers is because they are touchscreen controllers that might work, but probably wouldn't work. The fact that you didn't even see people cloning the style of those controllers says that they were not well received in the gaming community, because otherwise you totally would have seen at least one person make a clone of that. Just trading damage for damage and damage for damage. TechRaptor has an article. Valve reveals the top 20 Steam releases on October. Valve has their own article here, so I didn't really need to follow TechRaptor. Destiny, Indivisible, Trine 4, Doraemon is Story of Seasons. I put that on the fall list, but it is kind of a kids game and a Stardew Valley game. A game called Mistover, Grid, Pine, We Were Here Together. Oh yeah, I know what that is. Postal 4, No Regrets, Chernobyl. I didn't realize that game was already out. Chernobylite, Disco Elysium, Jack Party Pack 6, Arcade, Astronauts, Digimon, Cyber Sleuth, Complete Edition, WWE 2K20. Going to show that there really is no accounting for quality when it comes to at least WWE products.
I'm the best fire starter there is.
Exile.
Oh,
And
it's
then
you burning.
I may play it this turn. Well, I can't play it, so. Let's go ahead and attack here. And sure. Spectacle. Does this have Death Touch? This creates black rats, so I want to get rid of it. Then end the turn. Let's see. The Crossroads Inn, Rich Man 10, I don't know what that is. I don't know what Crossroad Inn is either. Secret Neighbor, and Atelier Ryza. And then they mentioned the top 5 free-to-play games. One is called NGU Idol. One is called Walking Zombies 2. One is called Legends of Keepers Prologue, and one is called War Selection. And I haven't heard of any of those names. And I also haven't heard of Breeders of Nephilim Alpha. But when I clicked on it, it was full-on nudity in the screenshots, which you think at that point, one would think, like at that point, if they're putting it in their own blog, they know that there are games that are putting screenshots out there with nudity in their screenshots, and I guess they're okay with it. I mean, you kind of have to believe it, don't you? Like, it strains credibility that you would write a blog and talk about a game and not have somebody look at that game and go, yes, this is an adult lewd sex game that has full-on nudity in the screenshots. Which, that's my only real concern, is that should there be nudity in the screenshots on Steam's storefront? Yes or no, take your pick. I'm just going to move this around this way because he was trying to get me to kill this character, I guess, so he'd save himself some life. All Chandra seems to do is draw cards. Doesn't seem like she really does anything else. 3 damage to any target. Deal 4 damage instead. Let's just do that. Okay. And he's conceding. Good. Good. Yeah, I don't know how many... How many articles we even have today. Because of the deck rebuild, we went long, and I suppose we should just break up here because I need more episodes. Yeah, we're doing fine as long as we can connect. We've got 2 victories, and we're more than halfway done with these 2 quests, and these will give us 500 XP, guaranteeing us at least 1 level, and this probably will get us at least 2 levels. So, yeah, we'll leave it there. That's going to be it for this recording. Stay tuned if you're watching live. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Remember, the Steam sale is going on from now to December 3rd. I didn't actually say the date. So that would be a great time for people to gift me a gift card or just pick a game. Lots of cheap games if you want to be really generous and give me something. Like The Witcher 3 I got on Good Old Games. So if you gave me the complete collection of The Witcher 3 on Steam, I'd be very happy, and then I'd go back and do that DLC and transfer my save file over. Hopefully one can do that. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of MTG Arena. Today is Wednesday, November 27th. Let's hop back in. Well, actually, I wanted to make a slight adjustment to my deck, didn't I? So, we are so we're so built around the concept of using the one character, these spell gorger weirds, that these extra cards here are what we would want. As many of the multicolored spells that also give us mana. Meanwhile, I think I can get rid of one mountain. I think I'm a little too high on that. And then I probably could get rid of most of those. And then I don't think that there's a great reason to play Chandra, other than it's to draw cards for a later game strategy. So I'm not sure about that. So what we're looking for is the spinning wheel. And yeah, just put in these 4 spinning wheels and then that'll get me back to 60. And that's all the change, just a slight adjustment. We'll see how that works. Meanwhile, we're gonna burn through the news and maybe we'll have a 3rd episode today, maybe we won't. Gamma Sutra has an article here. See how Control's Ashtray Maze was made at the DC 2020 summits. Now, the thing I would say here, as this is just an advertisement for GDC from Gamma Sutra, which is the parent company owns GDC. The thing I would say there is there really isn't much of a question in my mind how the Ashtray Maze was made. Like, unless they're talking specifically about how the Ashtray Maze was made when it was running before you actually had the ability to get through it. Because there was a small kind of twisting puzzle maze in it that you could find some secrets. As far that I found a few secrets. Maybe there was a lot more to that part. But at a certain point you get music, and then the music lets you move through the maze, and at that point it's extremely linear. Now there's a lot of visuals there, and there's some cool visuals, certainly cool concepts that are being depicted, but there's nothing really special about it. I mean, it's a great sequence to say the least, but it's not doing anything special or different. There aren't actually any like portals that are teleporting anybody. That there aren't any enemies that are really walking on the ceiling or crawling. It tries to evoke an MC Escher-esque world, but all the enemies in Control, or a lot of them, flew anyway. So the ones that are not standing on the ground are just flying like normal. So all you've done is really reskin the walls and changed some timing and changed some animations and just scripted some events. It's all flash, it's all just animation, and it looks very pretty, but it's almost making the same argument about, does anybody really question how a kung fu fight happens in a kung fu movie, or particularly like a Bruce Lee movie? There is really no question about it, or even a Jackie Chan movie. There's no tricks being done. It's just people practicing and making it look flashy and doing something cool looking. And we're having connection issues, so of course this is not gonna work. Now, in comparison, if you were gonna ask, like, how was the Crouching Tiger, Flying Dragon movie made? Yeah, that's all done with wire work and visual effects and all kinds of camera tricks and things like that. Things that would be something that needs to be explained. But yeah, if two people in a regular kung fu movie just get up close to each other and start punching each other, guess what? They're just pretending to punch each other. They just have a dance that they've been practicing and they do it. So yeah, it's kind of a non-article amongst the many Gamma Sutra non-articles designed around the promotion of GDC, which, yeah, a lot of people go to GDC and meet the creators and meet other creators. I really like being able to just not mulligan and play as the cards get better. I'm hoping that more often that happens, almost always. But yeah, right now I probably should be mulliganing a little bit more, particularly when I have a deck that is specifically built around really only playing 3 characters. This next game we have on Steam is coming up to the line, I suppose, of suggestive without really crossing it in the screenshots. I imagine the actual game is full on, potentially full nudity, although maybe it's not, and at that point this game has no good selling point. This has death touch, so I definitely want to attack now. So we have a game on Steam here called Bondage Girl, which seems like what it is it's really just a posing software with a 3D model. This character not seeming like she is much of anything, and she's probably just a pre-bought 3D model. All of these are. And then there's just different forms of clothing and different forms of bondage you can put her in, whether you're doing like a prison kidnap scenario or more of a Japanese art style of tortoiseshell bondage. Let's see, this is the tortoiseshell style as I understand it. Doesn't seem like there's much here as far as an actual game. It's $4.99. English, Chinese, and Japanese. It's almost certainly a Chinese game. There's a ball gag as I'm watching the video. I'm not gonna bring that up. And there's different poses. The thing here, and this is where this is gonna fall apart, is you could easily already own Skyrim and then apply any number of adult Skyrim mods to do a lot more than what this game probably does, and it would look a lot better. There's a streamer, MXMR I believe is his name, that pretty much single-handedly focuses on doing adult mods for Skyrim, although he sometimes does regular mods. So I'd say check out his channel and you'd be way better off than buying this game. And since this is a Chinese game, I suspect that there may actually not be any nudity in it. It's not tagged with any nudity. It says it has a story mode, which that's a joke. Yeah, the mature description says they're just bondage elements. It doesn't say anything about nudity, so the whole game being filtered through the Chinese censorship perspective has no value to the rest of the world, because it's not really delivering to much of an audience, unless you happen to have a fetish for boring, only slightly suggestive content. One would hope that that is not the beginning of an indication of where Valve has started to draw a line, and all adult games can only be as explicit as that, because that would be super boring, and it would be better off, Valve would be better off just completely banning adult games if that's what they were going to do. Man, I played it the wrong turn, didn't I? Because this is going to get a buffer, and then it's going to get that buff and then lose that buff before it's my turn. Meanwhile, only thing I can do is this. And then let's just prepare to attack. Next we have a game on Steam called Gang of Four, which looks like it's a strategy card game. Is it Uno? Is it Draw 4? Is it... Yeah, this might just be Mahjong played with cards, which would be... not cribbage, I forget what Mahjong played with cards is called. This probably is another low effort Chinese game. $6.99. That's pretty expensive. English and French with a third party account and a EULA, and it's Asmodee Digital or Asmodee.net requirement. Yeah, they priced themselves out of a sale, certainly, at $6.99. Like, this is a $2.99 game at minimum, and it seems like it's a Chinese game, so I don't know why it doesn't support the Chinese language. Let's see, Adventure Lifelink. Let's go ahead and kill this. See, let me look at what Asmodee Digital has put together. Otherwise, the Lord of the Rings adventure card game, Gloomhaven, none of the images are loaded, Mansions of Madness. Yeah, they have a lot of the board games and card games. Cars Cassone, Ticket to Ride, First Journey. Yeah, Asmodee Digital, known for translating card games to digital games. Unfortunately, they're also kind of known for doing it very poorly, and nobody ever really liking the games and charging too much in general. And then that, and then attack here, and I've lost. This aggro deck isn't working, clearly. But we're making progress. There is a problem with these daily quests in that you finish them way quicker than you get even 10 victories per day, let alone the 15 maximum you could get while still getting rewards. And I wouldn't want the daily quest to get longer and more difficult, so I don't know what to say there other than perhaps let more things stack. But I don't know how you really do that either. You probably need to reduce it from giving rewards from 15 victories to giving rewards up to 10 victories, and probably maybe even 5. Like 5 victories gives you the max rewards, and then rebalance at that. So triple the amount of rewards you get for each individual victory, and then have 5 victories per day. If I only had to play 10 or 20 games to get 5 victories every day, I very well might commit to playing playing every single day. But rewarding the lifestyle players that are really going to play this 15 times every day is just crazy. Because they're not the audience that you're trying to keep or trying to grow. The audience you're trying to keep and grow are the casual players. And speaking of casually playing games, I looked at how it gets with Azure Lane, and it seems like you pretty much have to spend 15 to 30 hours doing the full main story before you reach a level of commander. But even at that, it doesn't seem like there is any kind of automation autoplay feature. So I don't know if there's a game there that I really want to play because it's. So I'm probably just gonna get bored with it and uninstall it on Monday, and I'm just playing with it over the Thanksgiving holiday. This is a hand I should mulligan. Like, I've got too much mana now. Let's see. Too much mana, yeah. So, yeah. That being said, if the other Azure Lane game, Azure Lane Crosswave, is different and comes to PC, I might be willing to check it out. It may just be that the mobile game is too much of a hassle to play, where Destiny Child is still going great. Although I will say, in this most recent event, I did not unlock a character that I should have been able to unlock, and that kind of sucked. But whatever. I'll unlock him at some point, or I'll get bored with the game and stop playing it at some point. It wasn't a collab character, and I'm not sure that they're even going to do any more collabs. Really, so it may be perfectly fine going forward. Moving on, we have a game on here called Takinoko, which looks like a Japanese version of the Wood for Sheep game. It's not. What is that one called? Regardless, it's from Asmodee Digital. Also, so like Tabletop Simulator is $9.99 on the sale. Uno is $2.99. It says in-app purchases and requires a third-party account. I don't think I want to play any of the Asmodee Digital games if I have to make a third-party account, frankly. And this is $9.99 for what probably is just a kid's version of the game that I can't remember the name of. So yeah, and certainly doesn't help Asmodee Digital to put out 2 games at the same time, right before or right during a sale. Why they didn't put that out a little bit earlier, I don't know. But they certainly are going to get lost in the crowd. Speaking of getting lost in the crowd, we have a game here on Steam called Rock Simulator. And I don't think there's ever been a better example of a low effort asset flip on Steam. $1.19 discounted, English only. Why did somebody not catch this? Like, why didn't somebody see the name that it has rock in the name and simulator in the name? Particularly simulator. They should be looking and searching for every game title that has simulator in the name and giving that a second look at the very least to say, is this something we would want in our collection? I'm just gonna go ahead and kill this and exile it, because that's probably a major strategy card of his. But yeah, that's somehow got allowed on Steam, and yet Steam says they've taken off 2,000 games. They've taken off 1,000 games. Let's see. This would deal damage to a creature. This will deal damage to a creature. Like, I've got too many spells, I think, that would deal damage to a creature. And these guys don't synergize with me dealing damage, so there's kind of no point for me to even have done that spell, other than I'm just clearing the field, which I didn't even really need to do. So, and we do that, pay the adamant, and then we do this. So is our aggro deck ready for prime time? Should I move over and try and play it in ranked? That's the question. I want things that would deal damage, but not specifically to just creatures. I want something that deals damage to anything. So is there a spell I missed? There we go. 1, 2, 3 of those. And then let's get rid of some of the creatures that are just One, two, three. I don't know if this card is actually worth it. What I'd really like is another card that would buff and get +1/+1. If I type in the word +1 and hit enter, you think that there's something here? There's an equip card, we could take that. It's not really what I'm looking for. Get 7 dwarfs in there. Yeah, I just want more cards like that. +1/+1 and a double strike. That might be the best we've got. That might be the best one to play. This one seems like a major game changer, but it would be such a late game card. I think that makes sense. Nope, I don't think we've got anything better. Wish I had more of those cards too, but only one of those could be on the field anyways. Right. Okay. So slight change there. Not even gonna mess with the Wednesday Brawl stuff anymore. It doesn't give you anything, and would only slowly teach me a few things. Honestly, I know the timing is completely different, so what I'm saying wouldn't really have worked, but it seems silly that they're pushing people playing Arena to learn how to play Brawl when they would be better off pushing them to play Pioneer and introducing Pioneer, or pushing them to play Historic, which they just released Historic, so that would make sense too. This gets around that death touch. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Phil Spencer says VR is isolating, isn't a priority for Project Scarlet. So, yeah, the next game console not going to be focused on VR or prioritizing that. That isn't to say that at some last moment they don't add VR support to it, where you can plug in a VR headset, but then none of the games really support it. The PlayStation VR was moderately successful on the scale of VR things, but yeah, I don't think we're going to be seeing VR a main focus. And it would be funny if the PlayStation 5 came out and they went very heavy into VR. Now, very possibly the next generation after this next generation, whatever the PlayStation 6 and whatever the Project Scarlet successor is, I wouldn't be surprised if they had VR headsets. But yeah, it's too early. Also, I don't think Microsoft, particularly when they're looking at their Xbox service and that ecosystem, that is kind of the cheaper entry-level way to play games compared to just a Windows PC. So that they've already got you pretty much if you have a Windows PC, you can add their augmented reality or a virtual reality system easily on top of a pretty strong PC. So enthusiasts that are into doing stuff like that will still be able to, Microsoft will still be able to have some connection there. The idea that it's isolating, I think, is a interesting perspective to take from it, and some of the other talk of them focusing more on RPGs, the next generation, does make it feel like they are going in a different direction that might be the right direction. I would like to see the video game world shift away from first-person shooters. I think we've all had enough of them. I mean, we'll still get our annual amount of first-person shooters, undoubtedly, but if more games became more like RPGs and less like first-person shooters, that would be great. compare Call of Duty to Jedi Fallen Order, just to see that we are seemingly moving in that direction. What does this one do? So, oh, this is a garbage card. Need to remove this. Choose a target permanent card in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn, which means it pretty much would never work, except for it would bring back the 1 cards. Guess that might work a little bit, but not a lot. Alright. See, I'm trying to not really do anything with... What? That's not what I meant to do. I meant to do the exact opposite of that. That was dumb. Yeah. The Xbox in particular, I'm surprised that worked. Is in a position where you're trying to have friends play together, so adding VR support doesn't make a lot of sense.
Let me remind you to fear those born of
I've probably
darkness.
lost, but I kinda need to learn where my mistakes were. Speaking of VR, we have a game here called Cubeland VR, which
Strong.
almost certainly is just a VR. I don't know why you call this Cubeland. It doesn't even look that cubey, but it does look like it is just a selection of low effort thoughts. Yeah, and assets. This doesn't look good. Early access, $5.99, which is way too cheap for VR. English full audio, allegedly. Yep. Another thing that doesn't need to exist. Alright. So no blocks, just let it go. Wow. 6 damage. I can do that. I can't be blocked. Then I can attack here and lose. Just auto pass. Gamer Sutra has an article here. NetEase has purchased a stake in the Surgeon Simulator developer Bossa Studios. Seems like as we're approaching the end of the year, companies are buying other companies like crazy. So they must have been sitting on slightly more money than they thought they were. The stock markets do seem like they're going up and down like crazy. Anyways, so let's see. Is there any kind of card that would summon a card out of your hand, your deck? Alright, so Historic Pauper is a new thing, and this would allow you to get, let's see, at least 3 uncommons that are not in standard. Well, this would be for 500 gold, and if you got 4 wins you'd get 600 gold, so you could make back your money even. But it really is going to give you only 3 cards at most, and 1 would be rare and 2 uncommons. So the popper part of this, I suppose, is the thing to notice. And they've also We got a pack, so we might as well open it. Yeah, I don't know how you would play historic. Like, how would this really work? If we were going to... I guess historic right now includes core 20, core 19, Dominaria, Galaxian, and Rivals of Galaxian. And I don't have any of those cards. And then as historic moves on in the next rotation, I guess the next 4 things, which would be Ravnica Allegiance, War of the Spark, and Core 20, I don't have any of those cards. But theoretically, I should have some of these cards because I really should buy a bunch of these Core 20 cards. It will be extremely difficult, practically impossible, for me not to at some point have to make the decision to open a ton of packs of Core 20. I suppose if I just wait long enough until the next expansion happens, and then I open a bunch of packs of the next expansion, and that just gives me enough cards to merge with Eldraine to perhaps play all my way till the next expansion, and then by the 3rd expansion, almost a year from now, at that point buy Core 21. Like, that seems highly unlikely. That's how that would actually work. Meanwhile, I wanted to see, and we're doing a lot of tweaking here, is there some kind of draw card? If I type in draw and some kind of spell that would let you draw more cards. Discard a card and draw 2 cards plus 3 minutes. That's terrible. Discard a card and draw a card. That might be what we need to do. Sacrifice an artifact or a land. If we were gonna go with more of a discard deck, that might work. But that seems kind of crazy. If I had more of these, that'd be useful. How are we on making commons and uncommons and rares? And like, we really don't have a lot of wild cards. We probably wasted a lot. And then Nicholas Bolas, which is 1 blue and then 3 black and then 1 red. It's like way too hard to find. Yeah, looking at just like all the cards, I probably should be in crafting mode actually. Yeah, there seems to be only 3 cards that even have deck in their name as a key phrase. Yeah, so it doesn't seem like there is anything that would draw a card directly out of my collection and out of my deck and put it in my hand. And that's something I feel like Hearthstone would have done, but apparently Magic is just a little too complicated because they have so many cards that it can't do something like that. Yeah, there is something to say be said about if they just adopted kind of a Magic light concept where they specifically were reducing the number of cards to make it a more simplistic experience. Pokemon, the card game, I imagine, is the Magic light concept, but unfortunately they've never made a Pokemon trading card game. Honestly, if they made Pokemon Arena, with the slight exception of Nintendo being involved and videos potentially being claimed on YouTube by Nintendo, I would consider the jump there. I would totally consider moving over from Magic to a Pokemon. I don't care one bit about Pokemon. I just think the card game would be simpler and it would be easier to learn and adapt to. And perhaps that's the idea, is that Wizards of the Coast has this theory they'll get people playing Pokemon the card game until they're 12 or 14 and then move them over to Magic the Gathering. But I don't know if that really would work, because there's a problem with that, in the fact that if you're 14 and just at that point getting into Magic, you don't have enough money for the cards, it's too expensive a game, and you haven't been playing long enough to ever be competitive. So I don't think that really would work as an idea, and it probably hasn't worked. Now would be about the time that anybody who was playing Pokemon the card game would be about maybe 20 now, maybe a little bit older. And it'd be interesting to hear any stories from Magic players that said they started on Pokemon and then evolved to Magic. I'm just going to play this because I don't have anything better else to do. I don't want to discard a card for no reason. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Blog, how we combine film and cosmetics to create the noir aesthetic of Interrogation. Interrogation apparently being a game. This is kind of a advertisement for a game, I would guess. It looks interesting though. It does look like they effectively rotoscoped, which is what you do when you animate over live action footage. So they rotoscoped, which is cool. It's a cool thought. Of course, what you run into, and I'm seeing it even here, is an inconsistency in the art style. So like when you're over here and you're looking at this, this looks a lot different than what this looks like, than what this looks like, and then what this looks like. So consistency would be key, and having a tight and well controlled art direction would be a major goal in making a game like that. And this game is not out yet. Then we have another blog from Gamma Sutra here. What does a healthy publisher-developer relationship look like, with real contract details? So if you're interested in being a publisher or developer and looking at another person's contract, which would probably be pretty informative, or some details from that. That being said, I think a healthy relationship in general, whether in business or personal, is kind of the white whale. Most relationships end unhealthily or begin unhealthily, or at least spend a significant amount of their time being an unhealthy experience. 4 mana to do that. Can't. Yeah. Need this on the field in case this dies, so I can sacrifice this to bring this back. But yeah, one thing I probably could say in any kind of contract negotiation or anything like that is that there is a lot of positivity, and we'll just do a handshake deal to start the business, and then as soon as things start going bad, there's nothing in the contracts to account for those scenarios. And you should be pretty negative when writing your contracts. Frankly, you should assume the worst, have an out, have a resolution, and agreed upon resolution for terminating the contract and no longer working with each other right at the beginning, because nobody's going to want to negotiate that at the end, for sure. I've lost. My aggro deck, not aggro enough. So I might really be in a bad position to be playing an aggro deck. It's about 50-50, and I've said it so many times, I don't want in a game to have a win ratio of 50%, but in this case, I think I'm probably earning that 50%. Like, if I play fast, if I play very aggro, I will win about half the time. And then I'll lose horribly the other half of the time, which might be a very efficient use of my gameplay time, frankly, because if I can't go aggro quickly, then I can usually concede. I could probably concede every game in which the opponent has even 3 characters on the field. And the balance of the damage you do here only makes sense because we have 20 health. If we had even 25 health, I don't think any aggro deck would win ever. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Stay Out that's mixed. It looks like it's a free-to-play massive multiplayer by the tags. There's a decent amount of animation here, but I bet there's like no real game. It says it's early access, multiplayer only, third-party EULA, English and Russian. So yeah, it might just be a asset flip game. I can't really even say that this looks like it's a troll game or even particularly a low-effort game, just probably not enough funding to polish it and make it actually play. And the fact that it's an MMO, which this has been a consistent problem with games for the past decade or two, is that games get turned into MMOs because the main developer doesn't want to program any AI or write any story or actually have a product that they could deliver that an individual player could appreciate in any way. Instead, they want to make the players make most of the content. This guy's just waiting. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Widget Satchel, which seems like you're playing as a squirrel, running around, messing with a bunch of toys, for lack of a better term, and platforming. A bunch of widgets. Yeah. There might be a game here. Or it might just be a boring platformer, so I'll put it on the follow list. $11.99. English, Japanese, and Spanish Latin America, which is an odd combination. So, yeah. It might be that Widget Satchel is a kind of Dead Cells concept, watered down and a little bit more comedic. And you might just do multiple runs to find items that make your runs work better, your future runs run better. Let's see. Moving on, Gamatsu has the Famitsu review scores for issues 16-17. So they gave Defenders of Ekron Definitive Edition, which I have no idea, I haven't heard of, a 29 out of 40. They gave a Switch game called Gigantic Army a 27 out of 40. They gave a Switch game called Juicy Realm. All of these must be just eShop Switch games. A 32 out of 40. Moto new puzzle Otsumatsu-san Shinpin Sokogetsu Kikakyu for the PS4 and Switch was a 29 out of a 40, and I would guess it deserves it just for that horribly long name, and that almost certainly is just a simplistic eShop puzzle game. Need for Speed Heat got 32 out of 40. Picto Quest for the Switch got 28 out of 40. Onichamba Origin for the PS4 got 32 out of 40. 32 I guess is about average. Like, seems like pretty much everything is getting 32 out of 40. Let's see, Pretty Princess Magical Candidate for the Switch got 29 out of 40. Stranded Sails Explorers of the Cursed Isles for the Switch got 25 out of 40, so that one was particularly bad. And Wizards of Brandel for the PS4, Xbox One, and Vita got 27 out of 40, so pretty unsurprising that there wasn't much right now out to catch people's attention. Like, we're gonna be probably in an end of the year holding pattern for the rest of the year. I don't think there's gonna be any AAA games or anything like that. I do want to mention though that there's seems to have been a lot of advertising getting paid or still being paid for Death Stranding. Death Stranding getting a lot of advertising from the likes of Giant Bomb and Rick and Morty and plenty of other things. Alright, well, I think I'm close to winning anyways. No? I'm not close to winning. I've won. Onichamba Origins was the one game I was keeping an eye out for, but I would have been kind of ridiculous to assume that it was going to be a particularly good game as a just kind of warriors hack and slash beat 'em up game with zombies. Can't really expect it to be that great. It would be nice if it came out and it was like a 35 out of 40 or a 38 out of 40. It would be suspicious if it was a 40 out of 40. But yeah, they kind of know their target audience and they know what they're doing, and they know what they can do with their budget. I think a lot of game players are eventually going to have to come to that realization that we're going to have to be a little bit more gracious on the indie developers as far as their quality and the length of their games. I think Hellblade Sesuna's Sacrifice might be a great example of that, where that's a short and kind of simplistic in its gameplay game that they put a lot of effort into telling a story that they wanted to tell and animating artwork that they wanted to animate. And I wouldn't mind if that's where we saw a lot of games go in that direction, and instead of feeling like they need to be these 30-hour experiences with multiple gameplay mechanics on top of multiple other gameplay mechanics, just to check boxes off some list somewhere. Let's see. Nope, can't do that right now. Right, next we have a game on Steam here called Seraphic Destroyer, which is a low-effort asset flip game where you're playing as what looks like just a random 3D model of a blonde woman who is just jumping around shooting things and swinging axes and blowing things up like crazy. This is 79 cents discounted. I assume the idea is that she's supposed to be a seraphim, which is like an angel, type of angel, I think. But yeah, this clearly is just a asset flip. So yeah, the curation doesn't seem like it's been really achieved yet, if that's what Valve is really trying to do, because there's clearly some more stuff that will have to happen to turn it into a storefront that actually is more reasonable to browse through. Speaking of the reasonability of browsing through storefronts, like looking at the pre-Black Friday countdown lightning deals on Amazon.com is a mess. Their website's a mess. It doesn't work half the time. It's a disappointment, and it's just kind of scrolls infinitely and randomly resorts things, and the sales that they've been having so far are not really great sales. They're maybe at best decent sales sometimes, but then a lot of times I'm seeing the prices on them and I'm going, oh, that's not really a good enough sale to make me want to buy this random thing that I wasn't really planning on buying. So, and the other Black Friday sales, there really hasn't been a lot of anything so far, but I guess Black Friday hasn't happened either, so that let's see. Well, let's just go ahead and do this. So, Azure Lane Crosswave has its PS4 trophies out, and from that I can guess that there's a story mode, and each character is going to have a story. Honestly, I think I might enjoy Azure Lane best if I just watch the anime instead of trying to play Crosswave or the cell phone version of the games. And there's no guarantee that I am actually going to play any of these games. I'm just questioning it. I suppose I'm curious to see what happens. 2 damage, fight it however I want, or damage can't be avoided this turn. And we can't do that either. Alright, next. And then all attack. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article here. Crumbling World Alpha is now available, which looks like it's a, well, it says it's an ARPG. So, okay. Another game is in alpha. TechRaptor talking about... They're weird because they're kind of unfair about how they talk about games. if they did what I did and pretty much talk about everything that came out on Steam and just wrote an article all the time, they'd probably get pretty annoying. But to have articles coming out as often as there are posts from what's on Steam, but even what's on Steam is not too terrible to follow on Steam, on Twitter. So that would be one thing, certainly. But they seem to kind of pick and choose and play favorites, and that's not reasonable. And it's not even like they're curating for quality and they only talk about the good games that are coming out in beta, of which there's very few. Let's play one more game and then we'll wrap up this recording. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. The Pokemon Company is looking to sue the Sword and Shield leakers. No duh. Like, people are out looking to sue everybody all the time. In a funny way, I suppose the success of Sword and Shield, for all of the people complaining about it, would play into any kind of lawsuit if somebody's going to try and claim that they lost sales or were in some other way harmed due to the leaks of basically the Pokedex being missing is the main complaint. I don't think there were too many leaks specifically focusing in on the quality being less or them not really doing anything new. And then in a lot of ways, what Pokemon Sword and Shield was what you could have expected from the Pokemon Company, because it's pretty consistent with their previous releases of Pokemon games. They've always been very iterative and not very experimental. Okay. +1/+1 and double strike would be nice. Is there a way we can play this so this will work well? Sure. Let's see how this works. That makes him a 6, that makes him a 7. He attacks twice, he does 14 damage. That's pretty aggro. But we don't have the 3 damage to win at the moment, so it could be 3 more turns if he finds a way to kill this guy, of just attacking with this guy, and if that's how that plays, then that's gonna take a while. Let's see. This guy doesn't have Death Touch, so he can block, but he'll have to kill his character. So now I'm at -1 attack. Interesting. How'd they pull that one off? Alright, what does this one do? And that. And attack. He just gives up. Which, yeah, aggro's kind of working, at least on play mode. Maybe it won't work so well in ranked mode. And we're not doing too bad here. It's like 3 more victories and we'll have 10 and we'll get at least all of the experience that we can get today, and then it would be 8 more victories to get all the rewards you could get in today. And I don't think I'm ever going to get to a point where I play actually to 15 victories in a live stream. Not unless I somehow started making my channel be way more successful. That's one thing about the Copa thing, though, is that like when you looked at the trending tab, which I would check once a month at minimum, and usually not more than that, on YouTube, the trending tab was full of people playing Roblox and kids games, and some of the Minecraft streamers certainly are going to, like Captain Sparkles and Sunday. Like, yeah, their channels clearly are targeted towards kids. Like, and I don't think you can make a great argument to say that they were targeted towards 13 to 19-year-olds or 13 and older kids. No, they were clearly targeting 9, 10, 11-year-olds. And so if their channels fail miserably and can't be monetized anymore, that might bring a lot of money back to creators who were, you know, making content for adults like they should have been. But yeah, it'll be interesting, certain to see what happens there. So yeah, we already talked about this story, so I'll just mention it briefly. Valve is clearing out the last of its Steam controller inventory. This is the Steam controller with the touchpads. I think it's a touchpad on both sides. I don't think it's just a oversized D-pad. It's basically a mouse input on both sides, and like nobody ever ripped off this pattern at all. Nobody liked this, and people would much prefer analog sticks, which in some ways a touchpad might be better than an analog stick. But yeah, nobody's willing to rip it off, and so yeah, that never caught on. Surprise, surprise. Well, that's going to be it for this recording. Stay tuned if you're watching live. We've still got some news. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me further, there's a link down below to Patreon or the Steam August sale, autumn sale, whatever. A Steam sale is going on right now, so you could friend me and gift me a game off my wish list. There's a way of supporting me, or you could just gift me a gift card if you don't want to pick, or you could just gift me a game you'd like to see me cover. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to MTG Arena. Today is Wednesday, November 27th, the day before American Thanksgiving. We're testing out this aggro deck and playing it. I guess we could start trying it on ranked. We're at gold tier 4, so it's not really going to lose us anything. And I believe this season ends in 3 days anyway, so yeah, there's only up to go. So let's try some standard rank with this aggro deck and see if we've tweaked it enough that it'll win often enough. I think you need a 50% or higher win ratio to move up in the ranks, because you get like 2 pips every time you win, and you lose 1 pip every time you lose, and if you get 4 pips, it seems like you move up in a tier, and once you've locked in that next tier, I think you maybe are given some extra accommodation, or perhaps you can't fall down a tier at all. These are speculations, two things I should know, and the game should have explained a little bit better, but it didn't. So there's a lot of stuff here, a lot of work, and a lot of little polishes you could throw into a game like this to explain things directly, instead of potentially making me have to look it up on some website somewhere and trust some third party. Moving on, we are looking at games on Steam. So we have a game that came out called Art Former the Game, which looks to me like it is a combination of an RPG game and something else. Maybe an action game? It kind of feels like it's all over the place. Like, all these screenshots don't really connect well. And it seems like what you're doing is you're playing pieces of art throughout ancient times. So this might be a indie game in development that's worth following, or it might just be a low effort game. They want $15 right now, and it's English, German, and Czech, which is suspect to say the least. Well, Czech is a little suspect. So I'll put it on the follow list, and we'll see if Art Former the Game ever gets enough reviews. Meanwhile, we're having network trouble. This stupid backup that I'm running, I think, is taking up all of my bandwidth, and if that's not the problem, then it's just, I have to assume Magic's servers suck compared to everybody else, compared to Hearthstone's servers. And yeah, could always use more bandwidth. That certainly would be helpful, but that has more to do with availability near me than it does even paying for more. Let's see. And it does seem like when you try to play ranked, it takes longer to find a match game than if you're just trying to play regular. Which perhaps they need a way to adjust for that. I don't really see a reason why they wouldn't queue you perhaps already into ranked. I've never seen a game do this, but if it said, hey, actually found a ranked game instead, would you click here to play ranked instead? Or just have a separate queue where it's like, I don't care if I play regular ranked or not, I just want to play this deck. The only big difference between picking a deck and playing ranked and picking a deck and playing non-ranked is just, did you prepare? But I imagine there would be a large amount of people that wouldn't care if it meant getting into the game faster. And yeah, I would be very happy right now to either jump into a regular game or a ranked game and not spend 4 to 5 minutes waiting for it to try to find something and not really find it. And I'm being distracted, so this would be incredibly irritating for people who don't have dual screens, who can't do something else, and who aren't looking at news sites or the web browser for something else. So we'll leave that for a couple more minutes. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Get a job. Weaver's hiring an environment artist in Venice, California. Okay. Let's see. Next we have an article from Gamatsu. Facebook has acquired the Beat Saber developer Beat Games to continue to operate as an independent studio. So Facebook, who owns Oculus, now also owns Beat Games. They're trying their best, I think, to pad their bottom line as on VR, so that they don't have to report to any shareholders. is Facebook even a public company? I don't know. But that would be my guess, is that they don't want to report in their revenue reports that shows that Oculus and VR has been a huge failure, even though it totally has. Yep, and it seems like that's not going to work. So third time's the charm, I hope. Otherwise I'm going to jump back away from trying to play ranked, and we'll just go back to playing the regular things. Like, at a certain point, I basically need some B shots, some B coverage, B footage to play as I'm queuing for the next game. I'm not used to streaming and playing a game where you have to sit in a queue and wait forever. And I have no idea what my B footage would be. Like, I could certainly bring up footage of some other video on my channel, but then I don't know how helpful that would be, or whether that would be good cross promotion or not. So I was talking about how the Roblox videos on YouTube were always filling up the trending tab for gaming. Game of Sutra has an article here. An analyst says Roblox revenue on mobile alone surpassed $1 billion. Roblox apparently hugely successful by the looks of it. And it seems like that's the case. It seems to catch some level of children. Somewhere between the 8-year-olds and the 13-year-olds would be my guess. And people seem to really like it. Although I don't know why people would like Roblox. But if I think back, there was the Pokemon Digimon argument all the time, when I think in retrospect most people can clearly say that Pokemon was the one that you should have picked, because it was the one that was going to obviously be more successful. Bandai Namco versus the power of Nintendo. I believe Digimon is Bandai Namco. They had no chance at success there. So yeah, knockoffs are kind of a thing amongst kids' products, and they do have a tendency to potentially succeed even when they really don't deserve, because kids are not very discerning and they just walk into whatever the first thing that they see. I should have played this first, actually. Boy, wish I could undo sometimes. Had I played this, I would have had enough to play that. Well, actually, I don't think I would have. Put this on the field. What does this do? This just gives him more lane, so he can cast more spells. So his land strategy may come in conflict with my aggro strategy. Just keep playing things. Come on, let it play. Meanwhile, we have an article here from TechRaptor. Dungeons and Dragons 5e adds psionics. I assume 5e is the 5th edition? Yeah. So not really video game related, but the idea that Dungeons and Dragons is expanding may certainly influence a few game developers who specifically are influenced by Dungeons and Dragons. So what can we do to get rid of this? Well, if I played this, would I have enough to play this? No. So if I put this on the field, I think what I need is more mana than is realistic, because I'd need 2 here, so damage cannot be prevented this turn, and do 2 damage to any character. Right, that's any target, yeah. And then I would need 6, and so yeah, I'm just short. And I kind of need this to go aggro to attack this. Meanwhile, this guy's going to do damage to everybody, apparently. Let's see. So every time spells cast, this does damage. So I probably played out of order there, and should have played this. Right. This may be his only strategy though, so if I defeat this, maybe I'm fine. It seems unlikely, having really nothing else that I can do, but maybe. Well, is this guy gonna pass this turn or what? Well, whatever. We have a game here on Steam called Rom Guns, which looks like it's just a low effort shooter platformer game. $1.19 discounted, English only, 12 achievements. Yep. Got nothing else to say about that. Not gonna make it to the fall list, obviously. This is just gonna keep on going. He's just gonna keep on casting spells in the hopes that he can do 13 casts. And at the end of his turn, all of his mana untaps, which means he theoretically might have actually been able to pull something off. So I've just gotta kill this. And he just have to hope he doesn't have a counter of anything. As long as he doesn't have a counter, this kills that, and then that opens a small doorway to have victory. It's going to be asking quite a bit. I've got to do 16 damage while he's got to do 6. Next we have a game on Steam here called Battle Dome Redux, which looks like a low polygon ugly game that is in VR. Like, the graphics here in no way would work in VR. That looks horrible for VR. $9.99, multiplayer only, English only. Yep. Terrible game. Yeah, it's crazy that they are trying to have a VR game of the year come out in 2019 when there literally was no VR game at all that happened that was worthy of that description. Yeah, I probably have lost here. Unless I can get him to run out of cards, which is unlikely. And that wasn't enough damage. So yeah, he just has to attack. Or you can just keep playing the same strategy and it'll just auto pass because there's nothing I can do. So far, aggro is not ready for ranked play, but we were kind of running into that scenario where this aggro deck doesn't really have any kind of mid-game or late-game strategy, and probably never could or would. That if you're going to play aggro, you kind of have to play aggro the whole time. I think there is an argument to be made that I probably should make my decks as kind of more of a well-rounded thing that would allow me to change my gameplay style and still have a decent win ratio. I don't know if you can really do that and succeed or not. Anyways, next we have a game on Steam called Protect Your Fool, which seems like it's a black and white game where you just click on things that are trying to attack this character on the left. Seems like it's just kind of a poorly thought out idea of a game. $2.99, English and Portuguese Brazil. There might be a game here, a concept where you have a character that is just going to constantly run, and then you have a shooting gallery style game where you're trying to protect that character. Although I don't know how that's much different than most shooting gallery style games where you're having to shoot at anything anyways, otherwise you take damage. And the side-scrolling aspect here in the art, I don't think is probably the right angle. It would be much nicer if it was first person or third person looking forward at 3D objects instead of a 2D flat shooting mechanic. Let's see. Yeah, this game does not look interesting enough to me though to really make it to the fall list, because it's lazy and it's black and white, being black and white, and because it's random in general. And yeah, I'm only willing to give it 2 minutes. So if it hasn't found a match in 2 minutes, I'm just gonna exit out and relaunch it. And while it's relaunching, we can go to this TechRaptor article. Battleborn is dead, is shutting down its single and multiplayer in January of 2021. So you have a full year, I guess, to get the last bit of your enjoyment out of it. But there were people in particular that were very much screwed with Battleborn, because that launched as like a full $60 game, and then within 6 to 8 months turned into the free-to-play game it should have been. And now anybody who's paid anything into it whatsoever is getting screwed again, because there's just going to be absolutely zero content you can play on that in total. And it goes to show that Gearbox was definitely not a company to be trusted with your business, and it's may still very well be the case. The good news on things like Borderlands is that the single player on Borderlands will always work. I don't think there's any way that they could get away with, or would want to get away with, shutting down access to even Borderlands 1 or like the pre-sequel. Man, I'm gonna have to actually toss something because I'm so short on mana. So what do we want to toss? Just toss that, I guess. But yeah, it's a shame. I feel like Battleborn could have been something, but it was a competitor to Overwatch, and it's not like Overwatch really is even that hot anymore. And in all fairness to Gearbox, they released Battleborn a week before Overwatch came out, so unless they had heard some news that Overwatch was in development and were trying to release it earlier, and there's a lot of suspicion that Battleborn was always just testing gameplay mechanics and programming for using the Unreal Engine and creating Borderlands 3. So Gearbox may have gotten what they wanted out of it while screwing over the paying audience, which is no way to do business, but it's not anything I wouldn't expect from Randy Pitchford either. So yeah, Battleborn is dead. I think the 2K boycott and a moderate boycott on Gearbox is still due. Like, suppose if Gearbox came out and they were publishing a game that wasn't being published by 2K, I might be able to justify in my mind that, well, it's just Randy Pitchford that I have a problem with, and he's a jerk, but his business practices have only really affected people that he's directly interacted with. Gearbox as a company still has put out decent products, with the exception of Duke Nukem Forever and Battleborn and pretty much any of their third-party games they've published. That they certainly aren't going in the right direction, but I might be able to justify if a Borderlands 4 came out and it wasn't a 2K product, then I might be able to justify not boycotting that. On the other hand, I wouldn't be surprised if there were a few people that boycotted Borderlands 3 because of Randy Pitchford and Gearbox, and not because of 2K. And it might be the exact opposite. If 2K came out with a Borderlands 4 that Gearbox didn't develop, people might buy that more. And certainly a lot of people are boycotting Borderlands 3 right now just because it's on the Epic Store. By the way, it is 33% off on sale right now, which is way too much of a discount for a major AAA game that came out only a few months ago. But yeah, a lot of people not playing that game or buying it because of the Epic Store only. I clearly don't have enough mana, so let's just save ourselves some frustration and concede. Like, I'm not gonna win when he has 3 or more characters when I'm playing an aggro deck. Yeah, I don't think this is ready for prime time. I think it needs some more tweaks, but I'm not sure exactly what I'd want to tweak. And boy, is it quicker and easier to get a random game than it is to get a ranked game. They need to fix that. Let's see. They need to fix their queue system. They need to get more people playing ranked, or they need to just whatever. Like, I don't know what they're doing that's taking so much extra effort. So, what did he do? Paid 2 life to have that on the field. So, for 1 mana, I can do this and kill what he paid for, and he doesn't even get his lifelink back. TechRaptor has an article here. Asmodee Entertainment is releasing game tie-in novels, which is weird. Asmodee is apparently trying hard to get some more sales, but Asmodee Entertainment, which I assume is Asmodee Digital also, is the developer known for converting board games into video games that are almost always kind of lazy and not well done. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say there. It's just like, that's a weird direction. It'd be very strange if we started seeing that happen more often, where yeah, just toss the Planeswalker. That's the move. I wish Asmodee Digital did a better job. Like, that would be very nice, but they don't. This sucks. Alright, so clearly I have 2 expensive cards and I need more land. Yeah, the balance here is wrong. So I guess this is probably one of the biggest stories here from Gamasutra today. Valve issues a string of Steam bans after publishers caught abusing Steamworks. Valve has pulled around 1,000 games from Steam after publishers were caught abusing Steamworks. A Reddit user highlighted a purge after noticing a recent influx of banned titles on the Steam tracker. And after a fair bit of speculation, Valve told PC Gamer it had pulled a number of games that, after a handful of partners were caught abusing some Steamworks tools. Although no high-profile titles have been affected, some of those banned titles had been on the store front for a number of years and racked up a fair few user reviews, which the question about user reviews is always there. About how much of that is equals sales or equals anything of any value. The article continues. I'm basically going to read this whole article, which I very rarely do, particularly in Gamasutra's case. Valve didn't explain exactly how the partners have been misusing Steamworks, although game developer Alexandra Frock suggested one company, a Russian publisher called Dagestan Technology, had been releasing titles under different names. Some devs on social media, however, claim they've been caught in the crossfires after being wrongfully accused of abusing the system to sell bundles to consumers. Which, yeah, I guess that's one way shenanigans go on, is bundling games over and over again. The bundles with 100 games in it and selling it for like $20. The next paragraph goes, quote, "We've detected that your accounts have been used to assure Steamworks tools for selling bundles to customers," reads an email. posted by indie developer IDAL Games, IDAL Games on Twitter. We're removing all associated games from sale, and it says evoking, but I assume that's a typo. Revoking your access to Steamworks backend. We are not interested in distributing any of your games on Steam in the future. And then Game of Sutras says we've reached out to Valve for more information on the matter. So if I click on this link, link cannot be reached. I don't know if that is my internet connection or what. There you go. It takes it a while. There's some weirdness about how I program my router,
tough guy?
and whether it decides to give up early or wait and try a little bit longer with some of the connections. And then there's kind of an argument between networking people whether giving up early is the right move or waiting is the right move. But I would say waiting probably is a little bit the better move, because if your browser is showing you errors, that's a problem. So apparently there's this website here as a list of banned games. So let's see. Let's just scroll down here and we can see the names of some of these games. A lot of these I have not ever heard of and I haven't seen. They all do seem like they are pretty simplistic garbage games though. Like, so Space Girls is the first one that even seems like it might be an adult game. That's where my skew and my slant on this would be, is how many of these games are banned because they're low effort garbage games and how many of these are adult games. And so far in scrolling through this whole thing, seems like they are all low effort garbage games, which I'm perfectly fine with those getting banned. I don't think there's anybody out there that really wants these on Steams. Here's a one called A Lot Like Love that might be an adult game, but it's probably a low effort garbage game, adult game. One of the visual novels, I think it's called Narcissia or Narcissus, I think is the name. A 10th anniversary anthology project. It's an old collection of visual novels that I think are pretty short. It's on sale during the summer, the sale that's going on right now. I want to call it the summer sale, but it really isn't. But yeah, it's probably not worth purchasing right now for me. I don't see how I'd ever really have time to do a visual novel when I now know I really only have 2 time slots in which I can cover games. Yeah, I went down this entire list and it was about 100 games if I was to guess. And of those 100 games, none of them look good. None of them particularly look like they are legitimate, like, visual novel, adult game, or anything that would concern me at all. They all look like they really are just garbage. So I have to, I guess, remembering I am very much anti-censorship, but kind of pro-curating a storefront. So there's a contradiction there, definitely. Like, I don't really consider, and I don't think it's legitimate to consider, the Steam storefront that is a storefront designed around selling products to be a public forum in which speech is being shared and spoken. where it's something like Twitter and Facebook and even YouTube is very much a public forum. While we may be slightly selling our videos as YouTubers with ads, it isn't the main focus of, I would say, even the majority of people on YouTube, considering how little money and how few people are making money on YouTube these days. Yeah. So, what's stupid here, as I'm scrolling down now the second page, I'm not going to go through all of these, is why did it take them so long to do what would have been the most basic of a search? Just to say, hey, let's look at all the people that are making bundles, and let's look at all the bundles that have more than, let's say, 6 games on it, and then let's get a list there. And then once we get that list, maybe you need to whittle down the list a little bit more, and you go, how many of these bundles that have more than 6 games on it are from a publisher or developer or entity that has multiple lists with more than 6 on it. And then at that point you probably have a very short list of abusers of the bundle system. And it also would have been probably easy and something they should do right now, certainly, is just put a hard limit in it and say, we no longer allow you to have more than 6 games in a bundle without prior approval. So you come to us and we'll look at it, and anybody else that has bundles right now will be grandfathered in, and pending further review. I mean, it doesn't particularly seem like they've given any indication that they've nipped this problem in the bud, as much as they've potentially just caught a few of the worst abusers but left the door wide open, which maybe that's the case and maybe it isn't. TechRaptor has the same article here. More than 1,000 Steam game bans took place overnight. I don't know if it really invokes anybody. Like, it doesn't really encourage me to want to buy more games from Steam because they banned a bunch of games. But it probably helps their Steam sale. Although their Steam sale right now is not really highlighting any games except for the biggest games anyway, so that's not really going to change much. Let's see. Alright. But I can say I'm happy that it seemed like on the list there, this wasn't a huge purge of games that people were actually purchasing. It does kind of open the door about what is the direction Valve is going, but it seems like it almost seems like maybe there's somebody new in charge, slightly in charge, that are implementing a new policies, whereas in the past they've had these libertarian ideals thrust upon them as a company. This on top of VR Half-Life Alexa being announced. I mean, like the news I'm expecting to hear, or I suspect we might hear by the end of the year or by the end of it next year, is that Gabe Newell is retiring and he's stepping away from being the person in charge, because you have to assume that he was at least a major voice in the way that Valve has been run in the past 5 to 10 years, and all of a sudden it's being run in a different way, and that seems to indicate some new leadership somewhere. Of course, the accusations against Valve is that pretty much everybody in charge that has vested stock doesn't really care about the company and doesn't really do anything. So who would be this new excited young blood that's inspiring people to actually do something? It would be the question. Who's the savior of Valve that's secretly forcing them to actually do things? Moving on, we have an article here from Cyan. Cyan Ventures, which I assume is a parent company or a subsidiary of Cyan, has acquired the Unwritten Adventures in the Ages of Mist and Beyond, which is a tabletop role-playing game. Okay, so it's a tabletop role-playing game around Mist. Interesting. And they acquired it from Inkworks. So I'm wondering, and this is just so small, the text is, it's a, yeah, in 2013 Cyan authorized one of the first third-party works in the Deny universe since Mist 4 Revelation, the tabletop role-playing game. They made a Kickstarter and then they acquired it. That's an interesting way to run a business, I suppose, is that you license out your product to some tabletop game developer, since you're not qualified to really make a tabletop game as a video game developer, and then they go and make a Kickstarter. If the Kickstarter fails, no sweat off your back. If it succeeds, great, and then you acquire the rights of the Kickstarted game after the developer has done all the work. So an interesting way to make a profit, I suppose. I imagine we wouldn't see too many people pulling something like that off, though. I imagine very quickly, if we saw things like EA making, or let's say Bethesda makes a Skyrim, license out the Elder Scrolls universe for a tabletop game that gets kickstarted by a third-party game, then Bethesda acquires the company, or acquires the rights to the game a couple of years later, 7 years later or so. Yeah, that might work. Might work for quite a while. Might work for a decade or two before people catch on. And it's not like there's really much of a scam even going on. It's just convincing people to kickstart a game because a company is a small indie developer instead of a AAA game developer like Bethesda trying to get people to kickstart it. It would definitely be less successful if Bethesda tried to kickstart a tabletop game. People would laugh at them and say, "You've got money, why don't you just develop the game and then we'll buy it after the fact?" Now, I still feel it's important to say I don't recommend anybody ever kickstart anything, but yeah, I could see supporting a smaller company that very possibly will run away with your money compared to supporting a larger company that would very possibly run away with your money. Speaking of Bethesda, we have an article here from Komatsu. The Elder Scrolls Blades for the Switch has been delayed to early 2020. I half suspect the Elder Scrolls Blades might be cancelled before it comes out for the Switch. frankly, because it's kind of nothing. It's a cell phone game. It's on iOS and Androids, and nobody was excited by it when it came out. So that's, yeah, it's probably pretty good. It was supposed to come out this fall and it didn't. Let's see, come on. It was all does he have enough mana to eat that? No, but he did have enough mana to. Interesting. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article here. Assassin's Creed The Rebel Collection is launching December 6th. Is this a collection of the pirate games, I think? Let's see. It includes 2 full releases, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, and Assassin's Creed Rogue, which serves as a bridge between 4 and Unity, which would be the game after that. This is skipping over Assassin's Creed 3, which nobody cared about. So, it's weird, but I have been an advocate for taking some of these long-reigning video game series and editing them down into remakes and making it more simplistic and simplified. But I don't feel like these collections really are doing too much of that. What they probably should do, and it probably would be too much work and not sell that well, is take the events of Assassin's Creed 1 through 2 through all of the Ezio games, which would be Brotherhood and I think Revelation. If you took all of those events and edited it out, a lot of the grinding and a lot of the stuff, and made one big game from that, you'd be fine. And then if you took the Assassin's Creed 3 and 4 and Unity and Syndicate and everything up until Origins and merged that into one large game, that would be good too. And then you put yourself in a good position where Origins and Odyssey and whatever the next game is could be a third bundle for a third chapter. And those games play almost rather different than the previous games anyways. But yeah, you almost certainly couldn't pull that off. It would be too much work. The same way I'm not going to win here, so I should just save myself some time and concede. Just exit out and exit out quick. I don't need to see him play his cards. Alright, what do we need to tweak here? I think this to draw 2 cards is probably not worth it. This is definitely not worth it. Let's see, this I don't think is worth it. At a 4 cost, I wish it was worth it, but I don't think it is. I'm going to get rid of one of these, and then I'm going to do 1, 2, and that will give me. See, I'm at 21 and I should be at like 24. 1, 2, 3. So I need to get rid of 3 more cards. 1, 2. And let's get rid of one of those. I kind of feel like the problem here is I just don't have the cards. I just don't have the cards that I need. If I could find a couple more low cost characters that got buffed every time you cast a spell, if I could do some other things, some low cost aggro spells. Anyways, let's look here. Komatsu has the Famitsu sales for 11/18 through 11/24. So, Pokemon Sword and Shield, Ring Fit Adventures, Luigi's Mansion, so Nintendo Switch dominating. Shenmue 3 for the PS4 is in the 4th position, and frankly, it doesn't deserve to be in the 4th position for how they've treated their fans, who clearly are still rewarding them even though they were treated pretty badly. Below that is Death Stranding, limited edition included. Below that is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, so Star Wars does not beat 2 weird Japanese games and 3 Nintendo games. One of which is Ring Fit Adventures. I'm a little surprised Ring Fit Adventures is doing that well. Japanese people tend to think that they're overweight, even though in all actuality they aren't by any realistic comparison to anyone else in the world who's healthy. 7th is Mario and Sonic at the Olympics, and then 8th is Super Mario Party, and 9th is Minecraft Switch Edition, and 10th is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which means that 7 out of the 10 games that are on the sales this week are Nintendo games. So, unsurprisingly, hardware sales. Switch is in the first place, followed by Switch Lite, followed by the PS4 and the PS4 Pro, with the new 2DS and the new 3DS in 5th and 6th place, followed by 61 units of the Xbox One S and 49 units of the Xbox One X, which actually is pretty good numbers considering how awful they've been in the past for Xboxes. And it does... Yeah, I'm just gonna wait. Does it at the very least show that perhaps the Xbox has a chance of getting a few last sales before Project Scarlet comes out. The Vita only had 23 sales in 9th position, whereas whereas the Xbox had almost 110 sales. Yep. And honestly, you're talking so few numbers that, and I'm fairly certain the reason why the numbers are so small is because Microsoft simply needs to own some of the video game stores. Like, they need to own a store in Tokyo, in a few of Tokyo's districts that are just pushing nose every time. But frankly, they could be buying 100 units of their own, like every week, just to get the sales up a little bit more. Let's see. Yeah. If they had bought just 20 more units of the Xbox One S, they would have beaten the new 3DS, which only had 81. Now, the new 2DS, including the 2DS, sold 992, so that's not reasonable to do that. and I don't know how financially viable it would be to manipulate Famitsu's sales numbers that way, but it probably is more viable than you would realize. Let's do this. Alright. Do this. And next. And I'll attack. Next. Just go ahead and auto pass. Let's see. Resolve. Creating all kinds of food tokens. Pass. Yeah. Oh, he's creating tons of food tokens. No blocks. Let it attack. Here we go.
Let's do this. There's no problem fire can't solve.
Apparently can't cast that spell. Next attack. Yeah, I pretty much lost. Next we have a game on Steam here called Legend of the Nine Swords Side Story. Clearly an RPG Maker game, or just a low effort RPG, nothing visually interesting here. It's coming soon, apparently. English only. Yep, that doesn't need to be on the follow list. So a sale is going on right now, so in theory I could be focusing in or trying to do a Steam follow list cleanup, but don't really have a lot of desire or need to do that. I think we can wait until February or so. Yeah, some of these pages just don't want to reload. Games Radar has an article here, not a article site I usually look at. Go and make the best game that you can possibly can. How Microsoft is helping to evolve Wasteland 3. 2 days ago, Microsoft hasn't changed what the game we are making is at all, says In Exile, which, yeah, I don't think it is quite the point where Microsoft would start interfering and sending notes to game developers. They would only start to do that if they heavily integrated these the companies that they've acquired into Microsoft, and then there was a bunch of interference that way. In a funny way, I guess Microsoft's Xbox division acquiring these other companies is an admission that they really aren't in a position where it would make sense to, I don't know how to even really say it. Microsoft itself has been so focused on being the Windows company or being the server-side company, so Microsoft's game studios failing as an internal company, and then, or sort of failing, I guess is the best way to put that, is probably a good indication that their goal going forward is going to be very much to try and, wow, I actually had a victory there. I thought I was definitely going to lose. Yeah, I think their goal is to try to just fund companies that aren't Microsoft to make games. And what will happen is eventually they'll shutter or just shut down companies if they decide they're no longer pleased with those companies. Which, honestly, in the video game world, might be the way to do things. Like, maybe we don't need Walmarts and McDonald's to exist for decades upon decades. Maybe it is better that you just have startup companies like Tesla come in and do something different than, say, all the American car companies that have just kind of stayed in one place and not succeeded. So maybe it is better that talent just gets broken up and companies get shut down and then new companies get founded under new leadership and new ideas. It's kind of hard to know. It's probably impossible to know because you just don't have the ability to see what would have happened in the other timeline, where certain companies wouldn't have gone out of business. Like, if LucasArts was still in business right now, would there be more LucasArts games? Not really. If Blizzard had never been merged with Activision, would there have been better Blizzard games? Maybe a little bit, but probably not, because by the time a company is acquired, it's usually past its heyday anyways. So I wouldn't expect any of the Microsoft acquisitions of their companies to actually make any good games. I don't think Double Fine is going to make much of anything after they're finished with the one game that everybody wants them to make. Anyways, moving on. OpenCritic has an article here. Last year, The Nightmare is relaunching on Steam following the Discord store shutdown, which I forgot the Discord store existed, and I don't know if I even knew that it was shut down. So, yeah. Last year, here's a trailer. Nightmare. And is this gonna play? Probably not. What kind of game is this? See, last year The Nightmare joined similar games such as Friday the 13th, The Game, and Dead by Daylight, and the recent string of horror games that pit several vulnerable players against one overpowered killer. Yeah, unfortunately it seems like it's not a game that you can play single player. Otherwise it looks like there might be some visuals and some concepts here that might have worked as a single player experience. Although if the monster changes each season, or whatever they were calling it, then it would be a hard stretch to explain how a single horror story would have a different antagonist after multiple chapters. Although, you know, Resident Evil does that kind of well, where the bosses change. Although you tend not to be constantly chased by the bosses, you tend to be chased by the same zombies in Resident Evil. TechRaptor has an article here. Games Planet Christmas deals are week 1 are now live, so I don't shop at Games Planet and can't speak to their quality or whether they even give you Steam codes. But yeah, they're an affiliate of TechRaptor, and I figure it's probably worth mentioning the sales. Let's see if we can wrap up here. Epic Game Store has this Borderlands 3 Psycho bundle in Fortnite. Borderlands 3 includes a Fortnite Psycho bundle pack for free until December 31st. The bundle contains the Psycho Bandit outfit, Claptrap Pet, and Pet Psycho Buzz axes. Buy any version of Borderlands 3 below and log into Fortnite to get the bundle. So yeah, seems like they are trying really hard in a few different ways to specifically sell Borderlands 3 on the Epic Store. Valve Software retweeted. So like Valve made, like, there was a Steam support Twitter I think anyways, but Valve themselves now has 14 tweets. Let's see, they're just kind of promoting their autumn sale and some Dota stuff, and the Dota stuff is mostly, I guess, the most surprising thing there, and that's not super surprising. They haven't gotten annoying by any means or repetitive, so you could pretty easily follow them on Twitter and not have to mute them if you want to. Otherwise, you'll almost certainly hear any news that is of any importance to you from Valve through other sources. TechRaptor has an article here. Pokemon Global Link shuts down in early 2020. I guess Global Link is the way Pokemon games connected over the internet before. A series of services that extended the online functionality of Pokemon between Generation 5 Black and White to Generation 7 Sun and Moon. Allows people to trade Pokemon over the internet, similar to the earlier global terminal in Generation 4. So yeah, that's just that they're shutting down more support and peeving off, I guess, more Pokemon players. But I don't think they care, and I don't think it's going to irritate enough people for people to actually implement a real boycott on Pokemon. Some of these back-end services, though, would have been super easy to maintain. Or you certainly need to program a way around back-end services, so when you remove them, that there is still a way to do everything, even if it only locally. TechRaptor has an article here. Foil Nazi plans in Nine Witches Family Disruption. This looks like it's a pixel graphics game that's coming soon. And yeah, I don't have enough bandwidth right now to deal with coming soon games. Yeah, it looks like it's just a pixel adventure game. I'm wearing out my voice. Yep. This feels like this very well may just be a troll game too. TechRaptor has an article here. Doctor Who Infinity is getting 3 more episodes. That's a match 3 game. Doctor Who, like, kind of one of the worst of a series of bad Doctor Who games. And the problem in particular with these kind of this Doctor Who game is it's covering Doctor Who from a couple seasons ago, and that really doesn't matter anymore. You probably should make a Doctor Who game where either the Doctor is a really old Doctor character that's beloved, or you just don't see his face ever anyways. I'm sorry, man, I'm just wearing out my voice. And we've gone an hour, so I'm gonna just try to go through all the news really quickly and make this the last game, because I'm not gonna be able to talk anymore. I guess aggro has kind of worked and it kind of hasn't. It's done alright. I'm gonna try and eat a lozenge and see how that works, but it's probably not gonna work at all. That's a new card. I haven't seen that one. Ghost Story Games, which used to be known as Irrational Games, the maker of BioShock, is trying to sell some of its BioShock stuff for up to 50% off. Some of its swag. They really don't deserve any real credit. I mean, when you change your company's name to get away from being remembered and associated with Irrational Games and the fact that you don't want to make another BioShock, then you really don't have a credit to try and sell your business, which, by the way, you haven't come out with any new games since BioShock either. I think they worked on Infinite in some part, if not most of it. They desperately need to come out with a new product. Something different. And I suppose it's better described as the main guy, who is the main guy in charge of creating BioShock 1, took a selection of people and decided to have them. I can't block that guy, kinda. Decided to make a new company and is trying to pretend like that new company is the company that was in charge, when very arguably he wasn't. Sorry if you can hear me chewing this cough drop. I'll mention that Wikipedia has a list of 2019 in video gaming, and that's what I looked at to make a selection as far as the Steam Game Awards. Steam Awards, but none of those very few of the games that are on that list, and those are the big games, are particularly great or noteworthy. Like, 2019 really hasn't been a good year for games. OpenCritic has an article here. Google's Stadia team addresses one problem as another emerges. I'm not even going to bother to read this, but people are feeling ripped off. They feel lied to, whether that's justified or not, in your opinion. They feel like the games that were described as running in 4K, and they're not really running in 4K, and Google is just kind of passing the buck and saying, well, we give them the opportunity to use as much of the CPU as they want. I don't know if that actually means what people think it means, or if it means that Google is selling per like teraflop or per CPU time to the game people who are streaming on the Stadia. It might be that a lot of the games are running slow for the simple fact that people aren't willing or capable of paying the higher fees for better speed and better processors. But they certainly came out advertising him to be 4K 60 frames per second, and that's not what anybody feels like they're getting. I don't think I'm gonna win here. TechRaptor has an article here. Roguelike meets cards gaming in Little Dungeon Stories, which just sounds like another game that's not out yet. A lot of hype games coming out from TechRaptor considering the time. Jamatsu has an article here. Experience launches Shibito Magiri crowdfunding campaign. Third entry into the Spirit Hunter series. So it's a creepy horror game. I don't know if this is a Japanese or Korean title. I would assume it's a Japanese, but it looks kind of Korean too. I mean, I could buy it. Certainly if it was Korean. If somebody told me it was Korean. Alright. I think I've lost. I could have won though. Had I had the one card that did 6 damage. Twitch is still having problems off and on. I'm not going to bother to mention it, but yeah, Twitch support having login errors. So here is the new cards that I think are coming out called the Secret Lair. And let's see. The Secret Lair drops in 2019 will come with the contents below, as well as a code for the unique card sleeves as on Magic the Gathering Arena, and a unique code for Magic the Gathering Online for non-foil digital versions of that drop. The drops with tokens have a little something extra, which will be listed below. So I don't know if these secret layers are going to be good things if you were playing paper Magic to buy, but if somebody does buy them and they happen to get some codes, or if it turns out these codes are multi-reusable, let me know on Twitter, and that way I can maybe get some more sleeves and swag up my account. Or if you play paper Magic and you don't play Arena, I'd certainly appreciate that. Let's see. We probably have some games that were left over from Monday. Maybe. And we'll have to leave those over for Friday too. TechRaptor has an article here. Magic Champions Core Set Review. This is some kind of card game for Marvel Champions, not Magic Champions. I've got too much Magic on my mind, clearly. It would be weird if the second dinner game that's in development, that's a Marvel card game, is based on this. Marvel Champions. It wouldn't be a big problem, I guess, for me. Marvel Champions is a living card game, though it comes in fixed packs. It would be nice, frankly, if there was a digital version of a living card game more than a collectible card game. And there haven't really been any trading card games digitally, because that would be a nightmare, trying to actually trade online. If anybody was going to do a trading card game, it would have been Magic. So yeah, I don't know if the second dinner game that's in development is going to be a brand new game, or if it's going to be based on something like Marvel Champions, or perhaps some other game that I'm unaware of. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Air Console raises $3 million to expand its library and reach. This is a browser-based game service I've never heard of. So they must not have too many games or too much success so far. Let's see. TechRaptor has a opinion piece here. Borderlands 3 takedown on Malawan Black Site raid overview. So it's a review on either a DLC part or just a single large mission. He didn't bother to put any review numbers, but this last paragraph seems to be not too time consuming, very rewarding, easily accessible regardless of your online popularity. So yeah, it sounds like it's a Crawmax style final mission designed to be particularly difficult and won't require, or at least heavily suggest, that you should have a have 4 players playing the game. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here. Cygames and Citadel announce a pinball action game called World Flipper for smartphones in Japan. Okay. I could see this coming to the West, being a pinball game, and while it does have anime characters, they seem to be fairly family friendly. Yeah, I don't see a reason why this couldn't get translated and come over. And it's not like there's a ton of pinball games that have succeeded on cell phones, and having kind of an adventure Galaga Brickbreaker style combination. You're merging 3 concepts into one there, where you're fighting monsters and one assumes getting some RPG upgrades and having to hit specific people to do damage, but it probably doesn't get very complicated beyond that. Gamatsu has an article here. M2 developed shoot 'em up / visual novel Feveron Gakuin resurfaces as Gakuin, confirmed for the PS4. So it's a shoot 'em up visual novel, kind of like Galgun, it seems. Yeah, that seems like that's what it is. It'll be interesting to see if there's any censorship here, considering there is a bloomer mode, basically a pantsu mode under a different name, to show underwear. And we've got like 1, maybe 2 more articles. Let's see. We already talked about this article. Daymare 1998 gets free DLC that's totally not hunk. Which Daymare 1998 is another Dead by Daylight game. There's far too many of them. What's funny, particularly on that, is it's not even like there's been any successful asynchronous horror game out there. Like Friday the 13th was probably the most successful in my mind, and it still wasn't really successful. So why so many people were chasing that dragon, I have no idea. People thought it was good, and they probably felt it was good in the 5 minutes they played it at some convention somewhere, but in reality it just didn't sell. TechRaptor has an article here. You can get Rayman Legends free on the Epic Games Store next week. This was the 21st, so that's probably the next few days as the next free Epic Games Store game, which is fair enough, I suppose. And that brings me to the Humble Bundle store, and as this is the day before American Thanksgiving, I don't suspect there will be any new bundles anytime soon, although one of the bundles does end in 52 minutes, so it's possible that a new bundle would appear. But I would think it would be not in 52 minutes, but in like either tomorrow or Black Friday or Cyber Monday would be the days that the sale would come out. If they were trying to get ahead of any of those times, they would have had a sale, say, last Friday or this Monday. So then that just brings me to my Twitter feed, which, with none of the images loading, is incredibly difficult to scroll down through because, like, I don't know if a game that I'm seeing the name of is a terrible game. That game Pathologic 2 is now available for pre-order on the Xbox One. That was the game that I saw a review for Pathologic 1, and it was just a game that seemed to delight in frustrating its players. And so I removed both Pathologic 1 and Pathologic 2 from my wish list because it just didn't look like a game I'd want to put up with. Let's see, Gamatsu has an article here from 29 minutes ago. Kojima Productions veteran Kenichiro Imazumi has departed the company, which I'm not super surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people leave Kojima Productions just after that first game because they weren't happy with the experience, or they were only sticking around to be helpful. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, didn't even know they were making an Ultra Deluxe version of the Stanley Parable, has been delayed to 2020. Interesting. Good Old Games re-releases John Woo's Stranglehold on PC. There are some Good Old Games that have been re-releases of old games that I was hoping would come to Steam that really haven't so far. Oh yeah, here's a reminder to go to smile.amazon.com when buying anything on amazon.com, so you donate to your selected charity, whether you want to donate to, say, Child's Play or Electronic Freedom Foundation or any charity of your choice. Those are a couple off the top of my head. What's funny here is I'm seeing a combination of tweets that are old and new, and I don't know if that's another bandwidth issue or if I'm just seeing retweets. Let's see. Fallout 76 player versus player rules are being exploited with radiation. Who cares? You'd be a fool to still be playing Fallout 76, or frankly, you've been a fool to play it at all. Let's see. Any other bits of news I want to cover before we wrap up this stream? I really wish I could convince my voice to last a little bit longer, but talking straight for 3 hours seems to be about all it can do, and it seems like it's getting worse, not better, over time. Let's see. Apparently there's a game called Monopoly Longest Game Ever, which has to be a joke version of Monopoly. Let's see. It's not a video game though, it's just a tabletop game. And yeah, if anybody ever asks you, do you want to play Monopoly, you better really love Monopoly. Hey, here's a game on Steam that came out called Hentai Nazi, which clearly is just a low effort game trying to sell on sex. See, Star Citizen's Theater of War is a new 20 versus 20 battleground game. I don't think we need new Star Citizens games because I think they're still trying to finish the original Star Citizens game. See, 2K donates $500,000 to Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Good for them. They have the money, and clearly they're doing it for a tax write-off. But at the very least, they weren't trying to convince other people to donate in their name so that they could get a free tax write-off. But that usually is an indication also that they have so much money that they have to actually donate their own. Atari Vault adds 50 games in DLC. Interesting. I'd have to look up what Atari Vault is. And we should be hitting the point where we started. There's about 10 or 20 games that are on Steam that I'm not mentioning. We'll just talk about on Friday. Tickraptor has the new December 2019 Twitch Prime games coming out. So yeah, if you have Twitch Prime. Finally did get charged for Twitch Prime $160 a year. Now, I did not realize it was that expensive. I thought I was getting some kind of kickback for no rush shipping, but apparently not so much. And yeah, I don't really feel like I'm in a situation where I am not benefiting from Twitch Prime, because I do sadly order a lot from Amazon Prime, and on rare occasion watch some of their movies and don't do anything else with any of their other services. But that is a little too expensive, and I know they just raised the price this year, so it will be a consideration, I guess, next year whether it's worth keeping. Alright, well, that's going to be it for this stream. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry for the bandwidth issues. Hopefully by Friday my backup will be fully finished, and then there will be no more network problems, or considerably less network problems. That's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. There's a sale going on right now, a great time to do that. Or you can gift me a gift card if you don't want to make a decision. Thank you for watching. Have a